Black Boy helps an elderly man with firewood, but is shocked when a limousine appears at his door the next day. In the small, rural Appalachia, Ethan, a 14-year-old black boy, faces the weight of poverty and the responsibility of helping his widowed mother, Susan, on the small farm they live on. Amid hard work and dreams of becoming a mechanical engineer, fueled by old magazines he holds a steadfast hope that one day his life will be different. One morning, while walking back from the woods, Ethan spots Mr. Walter, a reclusive elderly man who recently moved into a cabin nearby. Walter, struggling to carry firewood in a broken cart, receives Ethan's spontaneous help. During their conversation, Walter mentions a better past, leaving Ethan intrigued and curious. The boy, who learned from his mother the importance of empathy, bids farewell to Walter without imagining that this encounter would change his life. The next day, a black limousine stops in front of Ethan's simple home, attracting the attention of all the neighbors. A well-dressed man named Daniel steps out of the vehicle and reveals that he works for Walter, bringing an unexpected proposal that leaves Ethan in shock. Upon discovering that Walter was a successful businessman in Detroit, owner of a famous car factory, Ethan is confronted with a new reality. Walter, who lost everything after a series of betrayals, sees in Ethan the same passion he had in his youth. Walter offers Ethan a scholarship to a prestigious technical school in Cincinnati, with all expenses paid, in exchange for the promise that the boy would pursue his dreams. Although nervous and facing resistance from his mother, Ethan accepts the offer, seeing an opportunity he never imagined was possible. However, moving to the city brings unexpected challenges: racial prejudice, the competitiveness of the school environment, and homesickness for his family. As Ethan adapts to his new life, Walter also faces his own ghosts, dealing with old rivals who try to prevent him from rising again. The friendship that forms between the two becomes a powerful foundation, helping them overcome difficulties and rediscover themselves in a world that seemed hostile. Ethan's journey is marked by internal doubts and reflections on his ambitions, teaching him valuable lessons about the importance of kindness and resilience. Amid this whirlwind of emotions, Ethan and Walter discover that sometimes the greatest transformations come from the most unexpected places, and that true wealth lies not just in possessions, but in the connections we make along the way. Ethan knew that his life was about to change, but the intensity of the emotions he felt as he got into the black limousine made him question whether he was truly prepared for what lay ahead. Looking out the window, he saw the landscape of Appalachia receding, the trees and mountains becoming shadows of the past. The longing for his mother and the farm that had always been his home weighed on his heart, and he felt torn between the excitement of a new opportunity and the fear of the unknown. Upon arriving at the technical school in Cincinnati, Ethan was immediately confronted with an environment different from what he was used to. The hallways were filled with students who seemed so confident and well-dressed, while he felt like a fish out of water. The pressure to stand out in a place where everyone seemed to have advantages he did not was overwhelming. In the first few days, he realized that it was not just his academic skill that was at stake, but also his ability to fit in socially. Among the new classmates, there was a group that stood out, led by a boy named Jake. Jake was popular, charismatic, and did not hesitate to show his disdain for Ethan, who quickly became the target of teasing and hurtful comments. Those taunts made him insecure, and he began to question whether he truly belonged at that school. What had once been a promise of a bright future quickly became a nightmare. Walter, on the other hand, was also facing his own challenges. He was determined to reclaim his life and his business, but the shadows of the past would not leave him in peace. Rivals from his old life in Detroit began to appear, trying to discredit him and prevent his resurgence. When Walter discussed his plans with Ethan, the worry in his eyes did not go unnoticed. Ethan wanted to be strong for Walter, but the pressure he felt at school was starting to affect him. He knew he needed to be a support, but he was also struggling with his own insecurities. Weeks passed, and Ethan began to feel the weight of expectations. In an engineering class, he excelled in a project, but when he presented it, Jake and his friends made sure to interrupt and mock him. The humiliation hit him like a punch in the stomach, and for the first time, he questioned whether he was truly capable of following his dreams. Those mocking voices echoed in his mind, making him doubt his own abilities. In a moment of weakness, he allowed himself to think about giving up. The desire to go back home, where he felt safe, grew stronger each day. Walter noticed that Ethan was struggling. He encouraged him to talk about what he was going through, but the boy hesitated. He didn't want to worry the old man with his struggles, as Walter was already carrying his own weight. However, on a rainy afternoon, when Ethan returned home after another difficult week, sadness overtook him. He broke down in tears, expressing everything he felt: the pain of rejection, the fear of failure, and the longing for his mother. Walter, listening to his outpouring, not only offered words of comfort, but also shared his own story of failure and starting over, revealing that he too had faced moments of despair. The connection between the two grew stronger, but Ethan's struggle was far from over. At school, he decided to confront Jake and the others, but their reaction was even more aggressive. One day, after a provocation, Ethan found himself cornered in a part of the courtyard, with laughter echoing in his ears. In that moment, he realized that the true fight was not just against others, but also against his own fears. He was becoming a battleground between the desire to assert himself and the temptation to give up. Meanwhile, Walter, in his efforts to rebuild his business, faced betrayals from people he trusted. He saw his determination being tested, but the friendship that had blossomed with Ethan became a beacon of hope. The conversations they had became deeper, and Walter's wisdom inspired Ethan to find strength within himself. Over time, Ethan began to understand that the challenges he faced were not just obstacles, but opportunities for growth. The desire to become a mechanical engineer became clearer, and he found himself increasingly determined not to let difficulties define him. He remembered his mother's words about resilience and kindness, and began to apply those lessons in his life. The friendship between Ethan and Walter became an anchor amid the storm, and although the path ahead was uncertain, both were determined to face the challenges together, proving that with courage and mutual support, they could overcome even the deepest difficulties. Ethan felt the pressure mounting with each passing day. Jake's provocations and those of his friends became more frequent and cruel, and he wondered if he would ever find his place in that school. The fear of becoming a target for laughter and mockery followed him like a shadow, making it difficult for him to concentrate in class and perform well on projects. He tried hard to stand out, but insecurity made him hesitate to share his ideas. Walter, in turn, was struggling against his own demons. The reopening of his business was filled with challenges. An old rival from Detroit, whom Walter thought he had left behind, had reappeared, trying to destroy what he had built. He realized that the pressure to succeed and secure a safe future for Ethan was becoming increasingly heavy. Sleepless nights became routine, and worry began to take a toll on his health. However, he refused to let that affect his relationship with Ethan. Walter tried to be an example of resilience, but the truth was that he also felt on the brink of despair. On a particularly difficult day, Ethan decided he needed some time away from school. He wandered around the city, seeking a moment of peace. However, even in his refuge, anxiety followed him. He sat in a park, watching children play, reminiscing about how simple and happy his life had been on the farm. Nostalgia turned into a wave of sadness, and tears streamed down his face as he wondered if he could really endure the pressure and humiliation. As soon as he got home, Walter noticed something was wrong. Ethan was quieter than usual, and the shadows under his eyes revealed that he had not slept well. Walter felt he needed to intervene, so in an honest conversation, he decided to share his own insecurities and challenges. He told Ethan about the days when he felt defeated, how failures shaped him, and how each fresh start required courage. This conversation sparked a small flame of hope in Ethan, who realized he was not alone in his struggle. In the days that followed, Ethan tried to apply what he had learned from Walter. He began to challenge himself, to expose himself more, to get involved in group projects, and to try to make new friends. However, Jake's provocations did not cease. At a school event, Ethan finally decided it was time to confront Jake head-on. Adrenaline pulsed in his veins as he approached the group, but as soon as he opened his mouth to speak, insecurity took over. The words did not come out as he had hoped, and Jake quickly disarmed him with a cruel joke, making everyone laugh. The humiliation was devastating. Ethan felt small and insignificant, and the idea of giving up became tempting again. Upon returning home, he sat on the floor of his room, head in hands, feeling completely defeated. Walter, sensing the change in the atmosphere, entered the room. Seeing his adoptive son in that state broke his heart. He knelt beside Ethan, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Hey, I know you're going through a tough time, but don't let this define you. We all face struggles, and that's what makes us stronger." The connection between them deepened even further in that moment. Walter not only became a mentor, but also a friend. He encouraged Ethan not to give up on his passions and to use pain as fuel for his determination. It was a powerful reminder that life is full of ups and downs, and what truly matters is the ability to rise again after each fall. Ethan's struggle was not just against Jake's provocations, but also against his own limitations. He decided he could not allow fear to paralyze him. Thus, he began to train his self-confidence. He joined a debate club, which forced him to confront his insecurities head-on. The first presentations were disastrous, but instead of giving up, he used each failure as a lesson. With Walter's help and constant practice, Ethan began to find his voice. As he fought to assert himself at school, Walter faced his own battle in the business world. The rival who was trying to sabotage him was becoming a real threat, and Walter realized that he would need more than just determination to protect what he had built. He began to seek allies, people who could help him face the challenges ahead. With this, he remembered that collaboration and friendship were powerful tools, both in personal life and in business. Before we continue with this exciting story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories, and let us know in the comments which city you're watching this video from. The struggles of both Ethan and Walter intertwined in unexpected ways. Although they were facing different battles, their shared experiences bonded them more than ever. With each obstacle they overcame, both at school and at work, they grew stronger, proving that while life may be full of challenges, resilience and mutual support could turn every setback into an opportunity for a new beginning. Ethan was at a turning point in his life. The feeling that he had finally found his voice and asserted himself at school was beginning to solidify, but at the same time, he felt the pressure mounting again. The competition in the debate club was intensifying, and each presentation became a battle that required more from him than he had imagined. He had committed to not letting fear take over, but the truth was that insecurity still haunted him. One day, while preparing for yet another presentation, Ethan received an unexpected message that would change everything. It was from a former schoolmate, Lucas, who had moved to another city. Lucas had always been a loyal friend, someone who understood Ethan's struggles. The message said that Lucas was coming back to town and wanted to meet up. Ethan felt a mix of joy and anxiety. He remembered simpler times when there were no taunts from Jake and the pressures of school. On the day of the meeting, Ethan was nervous. Upon seeing Lucas, a wave of nostalgia hit him. They talked about the changes in their lives, and Lucas shared that he was facing his own challenges. He had moved to a new school and struggled to fit in, but unlike Ethan, he had found a new passion: art. Lucas showed Ethan his illustrations and talked about how art helped him express his emotions and overcome his insecurities. As he listened, Ethan felt a spark of inspiration ignite within him. But amid this conversation, Lucas revealed something that shocked Ethan. He told Ethan that he had been bullied at his new school and had felt powerless for a long time. He not only faced the difficulties, but also let them consume him, distancing himself from his friends and isolating himself. This revelation shook Ethan. He realized that even those who seemed secure and happy might be fighting their own demons. That conversation was a painful reminder that behind every smile, there could be a story of struggle. Ethan returned home with his head full of ideas. He began to reflect on his own journey and the times he had felt defeated. The conversation with Lucas made him reconsider his choices. Instead of focusing solely on winning debates or asserting himself at school, he realized he needed to find a way to express his feelings, just as Lucas had done with art. He decided to try drawing, something he had never done seriously before but had always been drawn to. In the following days, as he dedicated himself to drawing, Ethan felt a sense of relief. He began creating illustrations that expressed his emotions and fears. Art became a refuge, a way to turn his pain into something beautiful. Furthermore, he realized that the vulnerability he felt in sharing his drawings with Walter and his friends was a form of connection, a way to open up and show who he really was. On the other hand, Walter was facing a new challenge with his business. The rival who had reappeared was becoming a real threat, and Walter realized he needed to unite with other small businesses to survive. He remembered how mutual support had been essential in overcoming difficulties in the past. So Walter decided to organize a meeting with other local entrepreneurs to discuss how they could support each other. He began to forge connections with people who were also fighting for their dreams, and this brought new energy to his struggle. The bond between father and son grew even stronger. While Ethan found in art a way to express himself and overcome his insecurities, Walter also rediscovered the importance of building a community around him. They shared their achievements and challenges, and each day became a new opportunity for growth. However, the pressure at school and work continued to mount. Ethan was preparing for the final competition in the debate club, and Walter was about to sign an important contract that could change the course of his business. The tension was palpable, and both knew that what was coming could define not only their individual journeys, but also the relationship they had built together. Ethan was nervous, but at the same time determined to give his best. He knew that regardless of the outcome, he had found a new way to express himself and confront his fears. Walter, for his part, knew that his struggle was not just a matter of survival, but also an opportunity to teach Ethan about the importance of resilience and collaboration. In the end, what they discovered was that each challenge carried with it the possibility of growth and transformation. The emotional impact of that revelation spread among them, creating a new perspective on what it truly meant to be successful in life. It wasn't just about winning or losing, but about standing firm, supporting one another, and finding beauty in daily struggles. Ethan felt his heart racing as he prepared for the final competition of the debate club. He had dedicated himself intensely, studying every argument and rehearsing his speeches. However, the recent conversation with Lucas still echoed in his mind. He had discovered that vulnerability was an important part of his journey, and it made him realize that true courage wasn't just about winning, but about being authentic. In the days that followed, Ethan began to allow himself to feel more. He drew not only in search of refuge, but as a way to release his emotions. The sheets of paper became a visual diary, where he expressed his insecurities and dreams. Despite having found this new passion, the pressure of the competition still left him restless. He knew that many of his peers were watching his every move, and that expectation made him nervous. On the morning of the event, he met with Walter before leaving the house. His father was sitting at the table, examining some documents related to his business. Walter noticed Ethan's anxious expression and asked how he was feeling. Ethan hesitated, but decided to be honest. He talked about the fear of not being good enough, of not meeting expectations. Walter smiled in understanding and shared that in his own challenges he had felt that fear many times as well. But, as he always said, the important thing was to try and learn from every experience. With those words of encouragement, Ethan felt a bit of relief. He said goodbye to his father and headed to school, where the competition would take place. The atmosphere was charged with tension. His peers were nervous, and Ethan realized he wasn't the only one struggling with insecurity. Deep down, everyone there shared a common goal: to be heard and respected. When it was his turn to present, adrenaline took over. He took a deep breath and began to speak. However, in the midst of his speech, his mind started to wander. He remembered the illustrations he had made in the past few days, the emotions he had poured into every stroke. Instead of focusing solely on winning, he decided he wanted to convey his message genuinely. He spoke about the importance of listening to one another, of supporting those who were fighting their own battles, just as Lucas had done with him. The audience's reaction was intense. Some peers applauded, while others seemed to reflect on his words. Ethan felt a wave of relief and accomplishment. Regardless of the outcome, he had managed to express something true. The competition wasn't just a battle, but an opportunity for connection and understanding. After the presentation, Ethan felt light. He found Lucas among the crowd, and they embraced. Lucas praised Ethan's courage in sharing his vulnerability. This exchange of support further strengthened their friendship. Ethan realized that art and now words were ways to connect with others, to create a safe space for emotional expression. However, the challenges didn't stop there. After the competition, Ethan learned that Jake, one of his fiercest rivals, was planning to provoke him on social media. The thought of being targeted for bullying again left him uneasy. He felt a wave of fear, but instead of shutting down, he decided to talk to Walter about it. His father listened attentively and suggested that Ethan seek support from his friends and even from trusted adults at school. With that recommendation, Ethan felt more confident. He gathered with his friends and shared the concerns he had. Together they discussed how they could support each other. This conversation not only strengthened the bonds between them, but also gave Ethan a new perspective on what it meant to face challenges. He realized he wasn't alone and that there were people willing to help him. Meanwhile, Walter was also facing his own challenges. The contract he was about to sign proved to be more complex than he had imagined. New obstacles arose every day, and he began to feel overwhelmed. Still, he decided to apply the same lesson he had taught Ethan: to seek support. Walter started meeting with other business owners, sharing his experiences and learning from others' difficulties. These interactions helped him see that collaboration was the key to overcoming challenges. As the days passed, Ethan and Walter grew closer. They sat together at the table, discussing their victories and challenges. This connection helped them face what was to come. Both learned that in addition to fighting for their dreams, true strength lay in opening up to others, sharing their stories, and supporting each other. In the end, Ethan realized that each challenge brought important lessons. He was becoming stronger, more confident, and more aware of his emotions. Art and words had become his allies, and he felt ready to face any obstacle that came his way, knowing he had the support of his father and friends. This new phase of his life, filled with discoveries and connections, was just the beginning of an even more significant journey. Ethan watched the sun rise through the window of his room, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. He had undergone a significant transformation in the past few months, but there was still much to learn. The debate competition had been a milestone in his life, but now he was faced with a new challenge: Jake's provocation on social media. The idea of being targeted by intimidation again left him restless, but instead of retreating, he decided to take action. After talking with Walter, Ethan understood that he didn't have to face his fears alone. He gathered with his friends, sharing his concerns and seeking support. That conversation was liberating. Together, they discussed strategies for dealing with the situation. Ethan realized that friendship was a powerful force, and that by opening up, he was building a support network that could help him face any adversity. Each day, Ethan's confidence grew. He began to feel more comfortable in his own skin. During school, he dedicated himself to engaging in activities that made him happy, such as drawing and participating in discussion groups. These moments of creative expression became a refuge, allowing him to channel his emotions positively. Meanwhile, Walter faced his own challenges with the business. The contract that seemed promising turned into a maze of complications. He felt overwhelmed, but following his son's example, he decided to seek support. Walter began meeting with other entrepreneurs in the community, sharing his difficulties and learning from others' experiences. This exchange of ideas not only alleviated his burden, but also brought him a new perspective on his work. He realized that success was not just about closing deals, but about cultivating relationships and learning from mistakes. One morning, Ethan and Walter sat together for coffee. The smell of fresh bread filled the kitchen as they talked about their journeys. Walter spoke about how collaboration helped him see challenges in a new light. Ethan, in turn, shared how vulnerability freed him and made him stronger. They laughed and reflected on how, despite the difficulties, they were growing together. The friendship between Ethan and Lucas also strengthened. The two became confidants, sharing not only their victories, but also their insecurities. Lucas, who always had a natural ability to communicate, encouraged Ethan to express his feelings through his illustrations. Together, they created a project where they drew and wrote about their experiences, addressing themes like friendship, fears, and overcoming challenges. This not only brought the two closer, but also provided a safe space for other students to feel comfortable sharing their stories. Over time, Ethan began to see Jake's taunts in a different light. Instead of letting them affect him, he chose to respond with empathy, understanding that often people attack others out of their own insecurity. In a group conversation, he shared this perspective, encouraging his friends to approach the situation with understanding rather than anger. This attitude not only diffused hostility, but also inspired others to adopt a similar approach. The new understanding Ethan gained throughout this process changed his worldview. He realized that true success was not just about winning competitions or accumulating awards, but about making a difference in the lives of those around him. He began applying the lessons he learned in his everyday life, fostering an environment of support and understanding among his peers. Through his experiences, Ethan discovered that each challenge brings with it a valuable lesson. He learned to trust himself, to seek help when needed, and to value friendship. The transformation he experienced was not just about becoming a better speaker or a more skilled artist, but about becoming a more complete and connected person. As he looked toward his future, Ethan felt ready to face any obstacle. He knew that no matter what happened, he had the support of his father, Lucas, and his friends. Life was full of challenges, but each one was an opportunity to grow and learn. And with this new understanding, Ethan felt prepared to move forward, embracing the journey of life with an open and brave heart. The morning of the big debate arrived, and Ethan felt a whirlwind of emotions inside him. He had prepared for this moment for weeks, but the pressure was palpable. The school auditorium was packed, and the anticipation hung in the air. However, the worry about Jake's taunts still followed him like a shadow. The young man knew this would be his biggest challenge yet, not only in terms of public speaking, but also regarding his own emotional safety. As he prepared backstage, Ethan took a deep breath, recalling the conversations with Walter and Lucas. He'd learned the importance of opening up and seeking support, and now it was time to put all of that into practice. His heart raced, but he remembered the lessons he had absorbed: inner strength, empathy, and the ability to turn adversities into opportunities. When his name was called, Ethan stepped onto the stage, first fixing his gaze on the audience and then on the panel of judges. He positioned himself behind the podium, and for a moment, everything around him faded away. He was alone there, but he didn't feel lonely. He knew his friends were rooting for him, and that gave him courage. The topic of the debate was the importance of empathy in modern society. Ethan began to express his ideas clearly, but at the same time, he felt Jake's gaze fixed on him. The memory of previous taunts threatened to destabilize him, but he decided to ignore the young man's presence. Instead, he focused on the words he wanted to convey. He spoke about how empathy could transform conflicts into dialogues, how it could create connections where there had once been divisions. As he progressed in his presentation, Ethan began to notice small reactions from the audience. Some people nodded their heads, others whispered among themselves, and that encouraged him even more. He was making a difference, and the feeling of accomplishment began to replace his anxiety. However, in the middle of his speech, Jake seized the opportunity to interrupt. In an attempt to destabilize him, he made a direct provocation, questioning the validity of Ethan's feelings and insinuating that he was weak for letting himself be carried away by his emotions. The murmuring in the audience grew, and Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. It was the moment he feared, but it was also the opportunity he needed. With his heart racing, he faced Jake. Instead of retaliating with anger, Ethan took a deep breath and responded calmly. He said that true strength lay not in ignoring feelings, but in recognizing them and understanding what was behind each action. He spoke about how everyone faces internal battles and that instead of attacking, we should support one another. The audience fell silent, absorbing his words. The atmosphere in the room changed. What had once been a tense moment turned into a dialogue. Ethan was finally in control of his narrative. He not only defended himself, but also made Jake reflect on his attitudes. As he looked at the young man, he saw not just a rival, but someone who might be struggling with his own insecurities. After the discussion, the audience erupted in applause. Ethan felt relieved and empowered. He had overcome not just the challenge of the debate, but also the shadow of fear that Jake represented. What started as a confrontation transformed into a moment of reflection and learning for everyone. When the debate ended, Ethan stepped down from the stage with a smile on his face. He knew he had made the right choice by staying true to his principles. Walter and Lucas were waiting for him with warm hugs, and the joy he felt was contagious. He had not only won the debate, he had rediscovered himself as a stronger and more empathetic person. From that day on, Ethan decided he would continue to fight for an environment of support and understanding, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. He realized that while challenges were inevitable, how we face them is what truly matters. Friendship, empathy, and courage were his greatest weapons, and he was ready to use them at every step of his journey. The victory that day was not just about a trophy, but about building a future where everyone felt valued and heard. After the debate, the atmosphere at school was different. Students gathered in small groups, discussing not just the outcome but also Ethan's words. The message of empathy and understanding resonated throughout the auditorium, and many seemed to reconsider their own attitudes. Meanwhile, Ethan walked down the hallway, still feeling the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had overcome a significant challenge, but now he was facing the consequences of his decisions. Walter and Lucas approached him. Both were visibly happy. "You nailed it, Ethan," said Walter, patting his friend's shoulder. "The way you handled Jake was amazing. You not only defended yourself but made everyone think." Lucas agreed, adding, "I've never seen Jake so quiet. He seemed surprised by your response." Ethan smiled, but his mind was racing. There was something deeper in that moment. He hadn't just defended his ideas, he had also touched the people around him. That experience made him realize that words have power and that empathy could truly change the way people interacted. As they walked to the cafeteria, Ethan began to reflect on what he had learned. He realized that although he had faced Jake's provocation, The real challenge was being true to himself and others. He knew that life at school wouldn't always be easy, but now he felt more prepared to handle difficulties. "Hey, do you think Jake will change after this?" asked Walter, breaking the silence. Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "I hope so. We all have our internal battles, and maybe he just needs a push to see things differently." Lucas nodded, admiring Ethan's perspective. "Do you really believe he can change?" "Yes," Ethan said confidently. "I think everyone has the capacity to change if they're open to it. Sometimes all we need is someone to show us that it's possible." Ethan's words echoed within him. He realized that by looking at Jake not just as a rival, but as a human being with his own insecurities, he had created an opportunity for dialogue, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. In the days that followed, the school saw a change. More students began to come together in groups to discuss issues of empathy and mutual support. The environment was becoming more welcoming, and Ethan, although surprised, was happy about it. He decided he wouldn't stop there. Inspired, he began organizing weekly meetings where everyone could share their stories and experiences. One day, while organizing one of the meetings, he saw Jake in the hallway. Ethan's heart raced. What would he do? The memory of the provocation was still fresh in his mind. However, he remembered the lessons he had learned about empathy. With a gesture of courage, he approached Jake. "Hi, Jake," Ethan started, a bit hesitantly. "I just wanted to know how you are." To his surprise, Jake looked at him with a different expression. "Hi, Ethan. I didn't expect you to talk to me. I know things haven't been easy between us," Ethan said, "but I really hope we can start over." Jake hesitated but then took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for the things I said. I was just trying to show I was strong." Ethan smiled. True strength comes from being honest with ourselves and with others. "Shall we try together?" The conversation that followed was a milestone for both. As Jake opened up about his own insecurities, Ethan realized that empathy could truly build bridges. From that day on, their friendship began to slowly blossom. Ethan not only became an advocate for empathy at school, but also an example of how understanding can transform rivalries into alliances. He knew there was still much work to be done, but he felt he was on the right path. And so, Ethan's life moved forward, marked by new friendships and a more welcoming environment. He had learned that, although challenges were inevitable, the power of empathy and friendship would always be stronger. Ethan observed the change around him with a sense of accomplishment. What had started as a clash at school had transformed into something much greater. He had not only challenged Jake's provocation, but had also inspired others to come together around empathy. The cafeteria was always filled with groups discussing, laughing, and sharing stories. The heavy atmosphere that had once existed had dissipated, giving way to a warm and supportive environment. The gathering Ethan organized had become a safe space where everyone could express their insecurities and challenges. He realized that by sharing their experiences, people not only felt heard, but also found strength to face their own battles. Ethan had learned that true strength was not in appearing superior, but in being vulnerable and honest. On the other hand, his friendship with Jake began to slowly flourish. Their conversations became more frequent and open, and Ethan saw Jake revealing himself as a different person, far from the role of the bully he had always played. They began to support each other, and the connection that emerged between them was something new and valuable. Ethan understood that change would not happen overnight, but he was willing to be patient. However, Jake's transformation was not well received by everyone. Some students still saw Jake as a rival and could not comprehend the friendship that was forming between him and Ethan. A group of students, feeling threatened by the new dynamic, decided it was time to retaliate. They started spreading rumors about Ethan, trying to reverse the positive image he had built. Upon hearing the rumors, Ethan felt anger and frustration take over him. He had worked so hard to promote empathy and friendship, and now he was facing attacks from those who did not understand his journey. But instead of letting anger take control, he decided it was time to act differently. With the help of Jake and his friends, Ethan organized an event at school where everyone could share their stories and reflect on the importance of friendship and respect. The idea was simple but powerful: to turn a negative situation into an opportunity for unity. The event attracted many students, including those who had tried to bring him down. During the event, Ethan took the stage and, sincerely, spoke about his experiences and the importance of overcoming difficulties with empathy. He did not attack those who had slandered him, but invited them to join him in building a more welcoming environment. The audience's response was surprising. Many joined him, and the atmosphere changed. Those who were skeptical began to rethink their attitudes. The revenge Ethan sought was not to repay the harm done to him, but to transform the situation into something positive. He realized that true success was not in winning a battle, but in creating a space where everyone could thrive together. The event was a success, and those who had tried to bring him down began to understand the value of empathy. Ethan's journey transformed him into a natural leader, someone who not only overcame his difficulties, but also brought others along with him. He had learned that life at school could be challenging, but with courage and understanding, it was possible to create an environment where everyone felt safe and respected. Now, Ethan invites everyone to reflect on their own experiences. How many times have you felt misunderstood? How can your actions impact those around you? Share your stories in the comments and join this mission of empathy and friendship. Every interaction helps spread this important message, and together we can create a better world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring and transformative stories. Let's take action now and make a difference.